FPL Game Week 2 team selection and wildcard draft. A week is a long time in football, and I've been kind of bad with uploads actually. So to make up for lost time, we're going to go through how my team did, a potential wildcard draft, what's happened during the week in terms of news, and my team selection. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe. Let's get into it. What's up? It's FPL Vert, where arrows go green, and as it was game week 1, we don't really have a green or red arrow yet, but I can say that it wasn't the best start. Of course, people have done worse, some people have done better. I would say the main issue is not starting with Haaland, and the main reason I couldn't start with Haaland is because I wanted Salah. And in the preseason, it was pretty much Salah versus Haaland drafts, when really it should have been, do we include Cole Palmer, who has now quietly been only scoring one open play goal since January. Of course, he managed to blank back-to-back in home games against Southampton and Leicester at the end of last season. I managed to forgive that, but really, he's on forward watch. And again, he did nothing against Crystal Palace at home. Of course, Crystal Palace are a great team, but it didn't even, when you just watch the game, it didn't seem like he did much. But of course, the returns came from his other teammate, Robert Sanchez, who kept a clean sheet. Chelsea have now kept 3 successive clean sheets in the Premier League, so they've got a very underrated defence there. Pedro Porro as well, he kept a clean sheet against Burnley. He was taking some set pieces, which looked great, so he's a good one to have going forward. Of course, Salah scored a goal at the death. It would have been a lot worse week if Salah didn't score and Haaland got his brace. Verts didn't do too much, but he did create the most chances. Tijani Reinders was, of course, the talk of the town. He's the favourite of the week at the moment with his 10-pointer. With a goal and assist, you probably expect more than 10 points, but he did get a yellow card, so not only did that give him a -1, it took him out of the bonus as well. So, all in all, an okay start to the season. Of course, I had titled wildcard in the title. I'm not thinking of wildcarding, of course not. It's just more if anyone is looking to wildcard, I have put together a wildcard draft. So, before we get to that, I just want to answer a few questions that I keep getting asked as well. So just to cover a few things before we get into the wildcard draft and also my team selection for game week 2. Of course, I am recording before the press conferences have finished on Friday, so these are just the main things I'm covering. But I would say the main news is probably the most owned defender in the FPL apparently. It's that Jeremy Frimpong has an injury. He has a hamstring injury that's going to rule him out until the September international break, according to Arne Slot. So if I owned him, I would certainly sell him. Probably go to 8 Nuri. That would probably be my best point of call if you want to go for a straight swap. You can also go down to someone like Pedro Porro if you like, maybe Munoz, but I do think Crystal Palace are a bit weakened, and we'll get into why they are in a second. But in terms of transfer essentials this week, obviously, you know, in game week 1, you're not supposed to be, if you think about it this way, game week 1 you have a pre-season wildcard. So typically when you activate your wildcard during the season, you're not looking to make a free transfer the following week, and I had the exact same philosophy here. If I owned Anderson, I would not be moving to Tijani Reinders. Of course, yes, Reinders scored 4 more points than him, but if you look a little bit deeper, Anderson actually had better underlying data than him, and he's also on the set pieces. He had great assists, and he was only 1 DEFCON off the threshold for 12. So Anderson's great to hold. Obviously, Tijani scored an assist and then looks great, but it was only 10. I say only 10 points, but you know, 4 points is the difference between. It's not immaterial, and you know, I think Palace is a great game for Forest as well. So yeah, I would keep Anderson, and for the most part, I will not make any transfers unless I owned Frimpong and had no depth. And then into the bench boost. A lot of people asking about bench boost. I have considered it. Some people have asked. I was almost tempted, but I'm putting it down to, you know, most benches are pretty much what the Bravka, Estev, Mark Yu, and then, you know, the extra midfielder or forward. And I don't think that's enough for a bench boost personally. I think we're going to have much better options across the season before game week 19. Of course, we have to use it before game week 19. I still don't think it's the best time to use it, and I'm not expecting much personally, especially when Mark Yu gets 0 minutes in a resounding win over West Ham on opening day. So I wouldn't go there personally. For the game week 2 captains, I would have Gyökeres number 1. I think, you know, if you do own Gyökeres, or Saka for that matter, you got to go for him. I think, you know, home to Leeds. You know, Leeds have just lost their captain Ethan Lampard as well. He's going to be out for, I think, 3 weeks. I think Arsenal's first league game of the season at home, following the monumental news, which I'm about to get into as well. I think you have to go there. So I'd go Gyökeres, then Haaland if I own him, and then Salah, who I will be backing as well. But the main news, of course, this week is that Eberechi Eze will be joining Arsenal as Arsenal hijacked Spurs' move at the last second. Very exciting times for the Arsenal fan base. I do think that strengthens Arsenal immeasurably, especially going forward. It now means that Saka will not be the main threat to try and close down that many teams already do. They just double team or triple team him. They now have to worry about Eze on the other side, as well as Gyökeres, who's a physical beast himself. So that's what I would be doing this week. So looking at a game week 2 wildcard, again, I am not activating my wildcard chip. I have no plans to do so. This is just for those who have already activated their wildcard chip, or maybe just need that extra push to go there. Again, I'm not doing it. It does look quite nice in my opinion, especially now that we have 1 week of information, but obviously 1 week of information is nowhere near enough in my opinion to draw enough conclusions to build a good wildcard team. So again, one more time, I'm not activating my wildcard. However, if I was going to activate my wildcard, this is what I would go for. Of course, Nottingham Forest picked up where they left up from. They looked largely good for defence. Of course, they conceded a penalty due to a handball. So I think they're very unlucky to not get the clean sheet, and I think they've definitely justified our investment in their defence. But at the same time, they did score just once in 7 preseason games, and seeing as Lacroix picked up 16 defensive contributions when the minimum is 10 for defenders on Sunday against Chelsea, I think he'll be great across the season, given he's 5 mil, he's a bit more expensive than the normal 4.5s, but I think he is worth that backing. Of course, no defenders scored more goals in the Premier League than Marc Cucurella in 2025, and when you watch Chelsea, you see how dangerous the positions that he takes up. So I would definitely back Cucurella for my premium defender, especially given the fixtures that Chelsea do have from a defensive standpoint anyway. And the rest rotate quite nicely. This is probably the only time that you'll see Esteve getting a start, but seeing as Anderson was quite close to the DEFCON threshold, but is hosting Man United, who looked pretty good, and obviously not good enough to score against Arsenal, but they look pretty good. And Dorgu looked pretty impressive in game week 1. He hit the post with an effort from outside the box. So I have Dorgu in my own team. I'm looking to start him against Burnley in game week 3 when Manchester United hosts Burnley. But that's the defence there. As I mentioned before, I did manage to somehow overlook the fraud that is Cole Palmer with my game week 1 team, and I'm not really happy with this pick. I decided if I could turn back the hands of time, I'll definitely downgrade him down so that I can get both Salah and Haaland in my team, which I managed to do in this team, because I think it's definitely possible. I've even gone for a premium defender. I've even gone for Lacroix. You can definitely downgrade Lacroix to a 4.5 in Richards, or Cucurella down to someone like even a 5.5 to get more expensive midfielders. But given the week that we have seen, I think Anderson and Ryan is going to be very popular at the 5.5 mark. Semenyo, of course, managed to score a brace at the Champions, and he now has a run of great forms, including hosting a Wolves side that just conceded 4-2 Manchester City. And then, of course, Mohamed Kudus got off the mark for his new team, securing 2 assists in Tottenham's 3-0 win over Burnley. So I think, given that Spurs have a pretty decent record against City, I wouldn't be afraid to play him in that. Then, of course, if you are wildcarding this week, I would be backing Victor Gyökeres. As I said, the Eze news is massive. He probably will not be playing, but sometimes, momentum is a thing, and I'm all about the intangibles in football. And I just think, an Arsenal side, they're looking to kick on. They're just looking to win their first league title in 21 years. They've just secured a massive signing, a signing that has pretty much united the entire fan base. There's not one person that didn't want Eze at the team, an old Arsenal boy as well. He will likely be present or be announced soon or around the kickoff time as well. I think it's going to be a very raucous atmosphere. I think it's going to be very tough for Leeds to do anything but them concede, especially as they won't be having their captain. So I'll definitely be backing Gyökeres, and the vice will probably be Haaland. But again, I don't think City is the best game. I don't think Spurs is the best game for City, but I do think, obviously it's just the context of the game. Haaland is amazing. He does what he does best. He scored twice. He had 3 big chances, and he took 6 shots in the box in game week 1, which is all league leading totals for the season so far. So we all know what Haaland can do. He doesn't need much introduction there. So into my game week 2 team selection ahead of the Friday night deadline, so make sure that you're aware and your teams are set. But Robert Sanchez will be starting as Chelsea hope to keep a 4th successive Premier League clean sheet, stretching back from last season. Chelsea are also looking to make it 4 straight league wins over London rivals West Ham, tonight, so let's hope for a clean sheet. Nikola Milenkovic travels to a Crystal Palace side that have got Conference League playoffs either side of the league meeting with Forest on Sunday. And with Forest being the reason Palace was subject to demotion from the Europa League, I'm sure that there's going to be a bit of needle in the game. However, Nottingham Forest and Milenkovic's Tricky Trees are actually undefeated in their last 10 meetings in all competitions with Crystal Palace. And considering that Glasner had to start a strong team in their Conference League playoff, we can maybe hope for some tiredness in this game and maybe hope for a clean sheet, or at least DEFCONs from Milenkovic. Pedro Porro is currently getting the nod to start away to Manchester City in the Saturday early kickoff, as I'm anticipating that Thomas Frank will deploy him in a wing-back role, much like we saw he did against PSG in the Super Cup loss. I just think that out of my defenders that I have, I think he has the best chance of an attacking return, considering Frank's record against Pep Guardiola at Brentford was actually quite decent. They drew the most recent meeting and he lost by 1 goal in 2 of the most recent meetings after that draw. So I'm choosing fun over DEFCON. I'm choosing, a bit of excitement over the maybe sensible choices, but we play this game for fun, and I'm not looking to be counting DEFCONs while Pedro Porro is going to be playing right wing back, most likely. And seeing as Thomas Frank also very nearly almost defeated the European champions PSG in the Super Cup, they were leading 2-0 before spursing it up and surrendering the 2-0 lead in the final 5 minutes to lose on penalties. I still back them to do something. Maxim Estev makes a start, as I want to split the risk. I don't want to start Dubravka over Sanchez, but I do want maybe a little bit of this Burnley defence in case they do keep a clean sheet. But seeing as Sunderland did just score 3 goals, and I do think momentum is a big thing in football, I am expecting Sunderland to score, but just in case they don't, we've got Estev starting. Mohamed Salah travels to Newcastle in the showpiece event of the weekend on Monday Night Football. And if Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest may have some needle due to the off-the-pitch matters, then I'm sure Newcastle's fans will create an even feistier atmosphere following Liverpool's much publicised pursuit of the Magpies starman Alexander Isak over the summer. And given Liverpool were not their best in their season opener against Bournemouth, they did still manage to score 4. No other team scored more goals in Game Week 1, level with Manchester City of course, as well as the fact that Liverpool are unbeaten in their last away days to St James's Park, including a mega haul for Salah last season when again I did captain Palmer over him. I should have known not to include Palmer again when he was facing Southampton, and Salah managed to outscore him, but the Egyptian King will retain the armband for me anyway. Florian Wirtz had a mixed Premier League debut. He still managed to create the most chances in the game, however, so I'm sure he'll look to get off the mark in terms of goal contributions on Monday night, hopefully combining with Captain Salah for the best combination that we're looking for. Of course, I own Salah and I'm going to be captaining him, so any combination with Wirtz would be much appreciated. Tijjani Reinders had a very memorable debut with a hand in setting up Rico Lewis, who then went on to assist Haaland with 1 touch. He then scored, and then he assisted Haaland, and he's already risen in price. So I'm sure he will have a lot of new owners this week, but we all know about what happens with the most transferred in asset. They almost usually blank. And given that the welcome of Spurs will not be as simple as facing Wolves, because City have only won they've only won just 6 of their last 15 meetings, and one of those wins were under questionable circumstances, because any Spurs result may have handed Spurs' North London rivals a Premier League crown. I'm not expecting this to be an easy game. As I have probably mentioned a few times during this video already, Cole Palmer is the root of my Game Week 1 frustration. He scored just 1 goal in the league in open play since January, and we are in August, almost in September. I did manage to forgive his back-to-back blanks against Southampton and Leicester, and I maybe allowed his Club World Cup performance against PSG to factor into my decision to his inclusion. But at 10.5 million, he is quite literally the 3rd most expensive asset in the game, so I should definitely be able to count on him as a serious captain option. But from what I saw on Sunday, he's largely ineffective, and he's facing a West Ham team that just lost 3-0 to promoted Sunderland, and I can't consider him as a captain at all. So if Haaland continues to tear it up, the Blues' new number 10 will definitely be sure the first to hit the chopping block and leave. Of course, I'll give him a few games, maybe until the international break at least. So seeing as Chelsea have a good record against West Ham, and they've actually scored twice in each of the last 3 games with West Ham. I'm definitely expecting some returns in this game. Morgan Rogers didn't do much in the opener against Newcastle either. In fact, he actually failed to take a shot. So as he's a similar price to other players that, you know, some 7 mil players are scoring braces at Anfield, he's also on the chopping block. But given that Brentford conceded the most big chances in Game Week 1, I'm hoping that there's some opportunity here for something. Joao Pedro's pre-season form went out the window as he was largely anonymous in his league debut for the Blues. And like Palmer, I've got a very watchful eye on both his performances and his minutes. Of course, someone at 7.5 million also scored a brace in Game Week 1, so I probably should have gone for him instead, but that's a bit of hindsight, of course. And then Ollie Watkins, he travels to his old club, Brentford, along with Rodgers. And given that he has no blanks in his last 4 games with the Bees, with 5 goals and 1 assist, I am a bit hopeful of returns here. I'm not looking to get rid of him straight away. I think Villa do have the fixtures to come good for now, and he has a bit more credit in the bank, as it were, compared to someone like Cole Palmer. So that's the team. So apologies for the lack of content this week. I'm going to be trying to get back to normal with a transfer list, or like, you know, the players to buy list early next week, and we can get back to a bit more content. So thanks for watching. Drop any questions you have in the comments, or, you know, you can message me on Instagram or Twitter, or reply on Blue Sky, because I post on Blue Sky as well. And I'll see you next week. Good luck, everyone. Bye bye.